do we go when our skin gets cold?
In 2022, Australia was excited about a player named Ashleigh Barty, who is of Indigenous descent. Already, the expectation that a home player would win at the Australian Open, held in their own country, was sky high. Following victories at the French Open and Wimbledon. The expectations for her transformed into immense popularity, overflowing with various advertisements and images and messages of support on the streets. The popularity was remarkable, not only among sports brands, but also extended to models of famous cars. In fact, Australia hosts the Australian Open, a major tournament that takes place for the first time every year. But for over 40 years, since the 1970s, the champions of the men's singles finals at the Australian Open have always been players from other countries, not Australia. In 1984, a player named Wendy Turnbull reached the semi-finals of the Australian Open, which was considered the peak achievement for Australian tennis players, indicating that Australian tennis was far from winning the Australian Open. However, this time, there was hope that Barty could win the women's singles. In particular, since the tournament favorites Serena Williams and last year's champion Naomi Osaka were eliminated early. At that time, the world #1 Barty saw it as a golden opportunity to bring the Grand Slam trophy to her home country. Ashleigh Barty, who retired in November 2024, is a remarkable player with a narrative just as compelling as Rafael Nadal's. The women's singles trophy at the Australian Open has been a stage for strong and prominent players like Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka, who learned tennis in the United States. Australians held grand celebrations, filling the center court with home fans during night matches and cheering for Australian players from the first round. But the players repeatedly failed to meet expectations. In particular, Australia has a great junior selection system, an excellent national tennis center, and a wealth of tennis coaches. Yet the winners of the Australian Open Women's Singles Trophy have been players who learned tennis in the United States and Europe. Despite having produced legendary Australian tennis stars like Samantha Stosur, Leighton Hewitt, and Patrick Rafter, there has been a history of disappointment for fans returning home from the Rod Laver Arena, which is a source of pride for Australia. Amidst this, a small Indigenous girl with Aboriginal blood began to gradually make her mark. Barty played a technical style of tennis, which is rare for female players, and in particular, her slice was as outstanding as Federer's. Generally, players who use a two-handed backhand tend to lack or not execute backhand slices very well. However, Barty was a player who, while using a two-handed backhand, was skilled at executing backhand slices with ease. Overall, she is stable, has an excellent low-centered balance, and unlike other female players, her use of slices is overwhelmingly superior. There were many matches where even if Barty just kept repeating slice shots without exerting much effort, her opponents struggled to return and ended up breaking down both physically and mentally. Her peak came in 2022, when she made a significant impact at a tournament held in her home country. She won the Adelaide Open at the WTA Tour in January 2022, and also won the doubles title partnering with Storm Sanders. Right after that, at the Australian Open, she faced the experienced American Danielle Collins, who is 178 centimeters tall, and despite being down 5-1 in the second set, she made a comeback to win, experiencing the joy of an Australian player winning the tournament for the first time in 44 years. Barty won her first round with a double bagel score and showcased her strength by winning the final without dropping a single set. At that time, throughout the Australian Open, there was a festive atmosphere, and as the home player, Barty advanced to the quarterfinals without dropping a set. The excitement of the tournament was growing. As a rival who was on the path to victory for Barty was defeated by another player, luck was also on Barty's side, making her path to victory smoother. With Serena not participating and Naomi Osaka, the Australian Open champion from 2019 and 2021 being eliminated, and Azarenka also falling out early, it seemed that Barty's only potential opponent in the final would be Simona Halep, who had only a 13% chance of winning. At that time, it was possible to imagine how intense the enthusiasm of the local fans was, as an interesting matchup was created, where Halep, the French Open champion, could potentially lose to Swiatek, the second seed, Sabalenka. In fact, Barty made her professional debut at the age of 14 in 2010 and gained attention by winning the junior girls singles at Wimbledon in 2011. After winning the Wimbledon Juniors, Barty immediately entered professional tournaments, winning 4 titles in both singles and doubles on the circuit and achieving a ranking in the top 200. This would have been possible because of her fundamentals and her unique weapon. However, interestingly, she left tennis in 2014 and briefly played cricket before returning in 2016. She achieved her first WTA Tour victory at the Malaysia Open in 2017. In 2018, she won the women's doubles at the US Open and reached the finals in all 4 major tournaments in women's doubles. In 2019, she won her first singles Grand Slam title at the French Open. And in 2021, she won her second Grand Slam title at Wimbledon. At the 2020 Summer Olympics, she won a bronze medal in mixed doubles. The peak was winning the Adelaide Open in 2022. And finally winning the Australian Open as a local player for the first time in 44 years, creating a huge buzz among the citizens. Born in 1996, 28 years old, 166 centimeters tall, she retired with a record of 305 wins and 102 losses, achieving a win rate of 74.9%, which is small for a tennis player. She was ranked world number 1 in women's tennis for 4 consecutive years, won 14 singles titles, and achieved 3 Grand Slam victories. However, immediately after winning the Australian Open held in her home country, she announced her sudden retirement in March, becoming the first female tennis player to retire from the world number 1 ranking since Justine Henin in 2008. At the time, her retirement announcement caused significant shock and controversy. At the time of her retirement, Barty had an over 85% win rate and a breakpoint defense rate of over 65% as of 2023. In particular, after Barty's retirement, Swiatek, who had been ranked number 1 in women's tennis for a long time, had a record of losing twice to Barty, and it was widely believed that if Barty had not retired, she would have continued to hold the number 1 spot in women's tennis, as opinions suggested that Barty's exceptional skills and match management abilities were still at the highest level. Barty played a technically skilled game, which is rare for female players, and in particular, she was as outstanding in her slice as Federer. Generally, players who use a two-handed backhand tend to lack or not use the backhand slice much. However, Barty was a technically skilled player who could freely execute the backhand slice while using a two-handed backhand. Overall, she is stable, has excellent low center balance, and unlike other female players, her use of the slice is overwhelmingly superior. There were many matches where Barty could win without much effort, simply repeating her slice shot, making it difficult for her opponents to return and causing them to break down both physically and mentally. In early 2022, she won the WTA Tour title and also won in doubles, and at the Australian Open, she won her first round with a double bagel score, showing her strength by winning the final without dropping a set, which clearly demonstrates how skilled and technically proficient Barty is as a player. In fact, Barty can be considered a genius with a natural talent for ball sports. He seems to have significant records in cricket and was versatile in ball sports, even winning a local golf tournament. What is the biggest advantage of Barty? It can be said that her precise, low-centered forehand and backhand slice are her greatest strengths. Her backhand slice, which is on par with Federer, is diverse and has a strong spin. For example, we can see scenes where even aggressive players like Swiatek are unable to execute proper forehand attacks due to Barty's slice. Although she is somewhat small at 166 centimeters, she excels at controlling pace and speed against larger and stronger players, creating favorable situations for herself. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Barty's backhand slice has earned her the title of Australia's tennis queen. So, how can we as fellow players learn to execute a backhand slice like Barty's? These days, in rallies focused on stroke exchanges, this slice can be an important tool. To put it simply, as shown in the video, it's about using the entire racket face accurately, rather than hitting hard. Speed is generated from the rotation just below the chin, and the key point is to maintain the wrist angle throughout. Instead of hitting hard, it is about firmly holding the wrist angle during the rotation of the torso and arms at their maximum, pushing the ball with the entire racket face, similar to how Barty executes a backhand slice. It is clear that using slices as a counter to Leighton Hewitt's backhand, Barty's slice has likely contributed significantly to her career. Just as Roger Federer became the all-time Wimbledon champion with the most titles, 8 wins, and 4 runner-up finishes, with a career record of 105 wins and 14 losses win rate of 88.15%. Even if we use a two-handed backhand, let's try to incorporate a backhand slice. If you know how to use a slice, let's sharpen our skills and develop various types of slices. Let's focus on practicing Barty's slicing technique for 3 months. Rather than hitting hard, use the entire surface of the racket. Let's create a slice by maintaining a body rotation to the chin and a wrist angle of about 82 degrees until the end. Just as days accumulate to form a life, focusing in 3-month increments will lead to a lifetime of tennis. Enjoy your tennis today as well. Barty, who is of Indigenous descent, has taken on the role of National Indigenous Tennis Ambassador after retirement and is involved in various activities, including charity work.